This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Matt Cullerton, founder and president at Mavric Tech, CEO and founder of Opso. I did say it right. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. How are you, Jay?
Good. So let's get a couple things out of the way. Who is your favorite QA agency and why is it JDAQA? Just kidding. I'm not going to ask you that. Secondly, this is your first podcast. So I'm very excited. This is great. I love being people's, first podcast. And I'll say it that way specifically so nobody gets confused of who's first I like to be. All right, Matt, we met in San Diego through 7 CTOs, went out and got tacos, drank some beers, just really enjoyed our time together. And then we got to meet up later and I heard more about the business and I talked to, some people that work with you or for you or whatever. And everybody loves you, man. And I really enjoyed kind of our first time together and it felt like we were kind of best friends that were back together for the first time. So thank you for being on today. And tell me, where did you grow up and did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur?
Ooh, great question. So I grew up in what I always thought was just a little town called Reston, Virginia, which has turned into be like the data center or next to the data center hub of, I guess, the world, maybe, if not all of North America. But just outside of DC, hail to the Washington football team as you wear your awful hat. And I don't know how that contributed. I don't know. I don't know if it's the place I grew up or the people I grew up around. My brother had a newspaper route. He's also an entrepreneur, and I helped him with that at an early age. So I kind of knew what it was like to hustle and make some money. And from there, kind of just odd jobs. Worked in restaurants through high school and college, which I always attribute, and I tell my kids, like, that's the best way to learn how to work hard. When in our roles, working in tech, supporting clients, can you curse on this podcast?
Say whatever the fuck you want, man. Nobody's listening. It's like the old Mitch Hedberg. It's like you can curse in the woods too. Go for it, man.
You eat a lot of shit sandwiches in this career. You learn how to take a shit sandwich real easy in the restaurant industry. Being in service, at the small stakes like that, I think teaches you a lot. So I always encourage any young kid to start there, at least as a part-time gig. It's going to humble you, and I'm humbled, by the way, by the nice things that you said at the top of the podcast.
You're a humble guy.
Sweet.
You're a very nice guy. I could go on for hours. But what was the first business you actually started?
Okay, so when college, I got a job in a defense contractor, Northrop Grumman. No offense to them, but it was not very taxing, and it was fairly boring. It doesn't move quickly in that level of a business. But I was making, a salary for the first time, and so hustling on the side, just hanging out with friends. And I had this one buddy who graduated as an audio engineer from Susquehanna University and was a DJ, and he wanted to get into making an album. He was big in the Baltimore down tempo kind of club scene, and he made this record, wanted to distribute it. And so I loved the album. And so said, hey, I'll go to cdbaby.com. I'll pay for us to press up some CDs. We did that. And we started a music label called District Bohemia. It was this combination of DC and Baltimore. If you know about Natty Bohs, so it was an homage to DC and Natural Bohemia. And we did that for about 3 years. That was like our side hustle. We'd go from DC up to Baltimore to Philly, unfortunately, and up to New York. And there was a big house party in Philly that actually was run by Diplo and some other people who are kind of now more notable. There was a big rap group called Spank Rock that was out of there. They had one record that Diplo was like their main DJ. Anyway, they were really good for a minute. So we did that for 3 years. That was like, I got a taste of again, eating a lot of shit sandwiches because the music industry is hard, but you also get like the energy of
Mm.
you're building something, you're part of something from the ground up, and you see like when the lows are really low, but the highs, man, nothing gets higher than those highs. And so that was exciting. That was really invigorating. And so from there, I went on to kind of be balanced and always have like a stable day job, but I was always looking at like what's the thing that I can start. And I eventually got there.
Beautiful. Is there anything you think about today semi regularly from those early days? Is there any like kind of things you kind of think back to, like, oh, this was I used to deal with the same shit. And I know you mentioned, eating shit from different sources, but is there anything kind
Yeah.
of positive business wise that you draw on from those years of kind of hustling and grinding and kind of continue to do the same thing you're doing now, but just in a different space?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do think about it quite often because now that I live in Nashville, like I'm
Mm.
surrounded by the music industry and I you can tell people about how much I don't want to be in that space anymore. As much as I love music and I adore the idea of the industry, man, it's tough. I think the biggest thing that I took away from that time is really around people and how to work with people. I remember asking my dad, who was a captain in the Navy and led a lot of people, for a long time. What was his sort of take on leadership? And especially when you're dealing with people who are just come from different walks of life, but also and so that shapes how they are as they're adults, but also like different age groups, so you have different levels of maturity.
Mm.
And he taught me something that I took from and I used at that time and I've taken the whole way, which is really around just fairness. So the processes will change, the people will change, systems will change, but how you operate within them, if you have this sort of central treatment of others and around those processes and policies of fairness, that'll guide you the whole way. And there's been some tough professional situations I've been in where that's been the only thing that's kind of got me through it. It's like,
Mm.
hey, I know this. I don't want to. I don't want to go into work tomorrow, but as long as I'm like treating everybody fair and consistently, that'll get me through that tough situation, and it has.
Do you think he meant your view of fairness or the people's view of fairness that you're leading?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So, being in the military, you have rules that are always around you, and they are well understood, or at least should be well understood by both the people you lead and the leader, and they're documented. And so, I think that what he meant is fairness to those rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't show favoritism to someone by breaking that rule in one person's favor or, negatively affect somebody else in a different way, in the opposite direction. So,
Mm.
what that's taught me is if there isn't a aligned understanding of what fairness is between the person you're leading and the leader, then how can you be fair?
Mm.
So the fair aspect is okay, let's find alignment first. What are we even talking about? What's the policy here? What's the system? Like, what's the thing that we can say fairness is even anchored to?
Mm-hmm.
And it's fair to, pardon the pun, but to get to that place first as a baseline, and then you can move from there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always been my understanding of it is find that alignment first, and then you can anchor to that going forward.
How do you do that with your guys in a dev shop?
That was hard, man. I don't know how it is with QA, but certainly with dev, there's I'll just say it, there's a lot of prima donnas, and that's born out of the type of personality it takes to be an engineer, but also the industry that has formed around engineering that there's a lot of scarcity and demand, and so people know that.
Mm-hmm.
I drive some pretty strict policies, and by that, what I mean is not strict in that they are like really regimented down to like how you clock in and clock out, but more around, we have certain values. We built policies around those values and and like what it means to show up for those
Mm-hmm.
values. And so we use those as the anchors to be fair around. It becomes different for each client, because now that client has their own set of policies, their own procedures and things. And so you need to make sure that it's extensible to that.
Mhm.
But we anchor around some pretty, what we feel are pretty strong core values, and that we try to drive fairness around.
I like that. That's a great answer to the question. Nicely done. All right. Let's talk about something you're probably not expecting me to talk about. Let's talk about personal brand. I'm curious. You're the face. I'm sure there was probably some hesitance along the way at some point of being the face, as is the case with a lot of dev agency owners. They're usually tech guys. They're smart. They like to kind of just build these systems and like not be this like showman out front waving your hands around. Just going to assume that was similar to you.
True. Yeah.
How do you deal with it now? Like, are you Maverick? Is Maverick you? Are you kind of aware that like there's this like networking kind of like version of Matt that everybody sees online that needs to kind of promote a certain way and that has to support the way that the business thing. Like, how do you think of personal brand? Like when you're out there posting stuff, or when you're on social media, or you're at an event, at 0111 or whatever it is. How are you trying to kind of either differentiate Matt from Maverick or make them the same thing, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And it's, I guess, in one word, how do I approach it? It's uncomfortable. It's
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable. One, something that I tell people that I first meet, especially like prospects, I'm not a salesperson. I feel like if you're going to be the lead, there's an element of, you said showmanship, there's sales associated with all of this. I'm an engineer. Like, I've been an engineer for over 20 years. Like, that's the way I think. And my approach to how I think about my personal brand and what that means to me specifically, or me and Maverick, or Maverick specific. I honestly think about this in an engineering mindset. I try to break it down. I try to dissect it. I don't know if that's serving me or not, but that's, I can't separate the way I think about things. Um, it's funny, Maverick and Matt are very much it's like a symbiotic relationship. Absolutely. If you are a Marvel comic book fan, it almost feels like Venom. I'm attached to this suit of Maverick in some way now, but that's not how I actually want it to be. I think as any business owner, there's a threshold where you want the business to be able to kind of be independent of you. And when I started Maverick, one of the things that we set out to do, and I think have done successfully, is to differentiate ourselves as a dev agency by saying we're a CTO led agency. And that isn't to mean that there isn't a CTO in any other dev agencies, but the idea of CTO led is that typically dev agencies will put butts in seats, and you're getting the engineering resource
Mm-hmm.
as your the thing that you're adding to your team. And what we're adding is, there's a CTO that comes along, whether they're dedicated as, in a fractional capacity, or just there as, advisor from time to time. And that's always been me. I have over the years found other CTOs who help me. And, you've met some of them, and, they'll work in that capacity. But I've thought over the years, like, I will always be a bottleneck if Maverick is always me. So how do I start to detach? How do I start to split the Venom suit from myself?
Mm-hmm.
And that's still a challenge. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that successfully. I think the way that has morphed over time is less around CTO led being a specific individual, and more around maybe a set of documentation or reporting, or really artifacts that come from, hey, if I'm going to hire this group of engineers to either be a part of my team or deliver on a project for me, how do I know that it's working? How do I know that I'm getting the best value? How do I know that they're doing the right things, or that we're solving the right problems? And the way that a CTO would think about these things, like, how do we deliver that without having to attach a CTO?
Mm-hmm.
So that means, how do we embody some of that within the people that are on our team and train them up to think in a certain way, which I would argue is definitely not a way that most outsourced teams think. But also, is there a level of touch and handholding that we can still offer at a scalable way, or in a
Mm-hmm.
scalable way? And so I'm still trying to figure that out. Right now we're still very connected. This year I'm hoping to tease apart a little bit more.
Yep.
And how that shows up for networking events and me, like, I don't know, I just try to be my authentic self. Part of being Maverick is I'm not trying to actively sell you on something. I actually don't take on more contracts or fire more customers that are not the right fit for what we want to do, because I don't want to just be I'm not looking just to take your money, to put it bluntly. Like, I could very much try to sell you on, hey, let's put these people in that seat because that's most profitable to me. But I actually prefer to solve your real problems. And I think that just starts with being genuine and authentic around, I like to solve problems. I'm an engineer first. And so let's think about these, type of problems or whatever you're facing from that perspective. And if we're a good fit, or if I can help you in any way, then great. And so I think I again, that comes back to also that concept of fairness.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being fair to myself and I'm being fair to you, like, that's where authenticity comes through.
Love it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Kind of actually in the same vein, but you kind of explained how sales and just call it lead generation marketing, whatever you want to call it, it works today. You mentioned kind of wanting to, decouple yourself from some of those activities. What and obviously without giving away the secret sauce or the top secret plans for 26, but how do you plan on attacking that in 26? Because that is something that, number one, I think business coaches exist because people don't know that EAs exist. And then like, they're like, oh shit, I could have somebody do all my email. Like, that's great. Like, it's great. And like that, like business coaches exist in my head. Number one, the most successful one is like that 0 to 1 delegation kind of path, right? Where it's like just the super low hanging fruit, the shit that bothers you all day, scheduling, emailing, messaging, LinkedIn, like all the shit that's just like there all the time. But what are your plans for 26 to kind of start to build either a sales or marketing engine that's not directly tied to your face? Which I do, by the way, slightly disagree. I think unless you're Comcast, which I don't know that you and I are ever going to be to that level, or McKenzie or whoever, I don't know that you being the face is the bottleneck that maybe you think it is right now, right? Because if you have systems in place that are generating leads while you're still the face, as long as you're not the one that's like completely responsible for every single intake or lead into the company, you can still be the guy and be the face and be the people want to work with people. I mean, you hear it all the time. It's a true statement. Like people work with Maverick because they like you, right? And like that doesn't ever have to change. You just may have to change the way that you scale those interactions, right? Where you're just doing
Yeah.
discoveries. You're doing 5 discoveries a week, and like that's all you do. And you've got a team that does all this other stuff. So I would argue, as nice of a guy as you are, and kind of a natural people person, and kind of people, I feel like people are kind of drawn to just whatever energy you have, and I kind of saw that at that conference. Just people like to be around you. You're a comfortable guy, like to kind of feel comfortable sitting in the same space. I think that doesn't go away. I think that's still your superpower, right? That's the one that disarms the potential prospect to go like, oh, let me. He seems like a nice guy. Let me talk to him, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I feel like some people want to get away from, but it's not even a real problem, right? Like nobody's gonna go, oh, this is Matt and this company are like kind of the same thing. Like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you got to take advantage of just your persona and your personality and the way that you think. So anyway, you came on this show for unsolicited advice and you just got them. So you're welcome for that. But for 26, what are we thinking, man? Like, what are some of the things that you want to start doing to get out from under being the only sales engine?
Yeah. I appreciate the kind words, but also the advice there. I think, to put it more concretely, when I mean about separating myself, is that I actually don't have a problem being that first intake. It's more that I am the first intake all the way through and into the engagement
Yep.
in most cases.
Yep.
And so what I really want to tease apart is these downstream aspects. So the stuff that we're doing this year is, I spent I spent last year, 2025 has really been kind of focused in two areas. One, obviously AI is, I won't say disrupting, but it's impacting our industry in a lot of ways. And so, one, for me is really understanding how that is and how we can leverage it and what are the best ways that we stay on top of what's happening. But two, how do we start putting together some of those systems? So how do I hired an EA for the first time, and I started to define some of these processes that are happening kind of downstream. And so this year is really okay. Now that we've got some of those defined and we've battle tested them a little bit to get them a bit more mature, how do I now start delegating some of that to other people to do?
Yep.
And so that's really the focus this year in 26. And that'll really tease me out of some of those downstream pieces. And to be honest, if I can also get um, diversity in some of the intake also. So if I can find someone who also does some of the beginning pieces, then I can really test, is it just me? Are people drawn to Maverick because it's just me and like they're coming through a networking event and a conversation that we had, or someone that knows us or knows me? To, is there something about the business or our reputation outside of me that stands on its own that people are drawn to, or the offer that people are drawn to? And so I'd love to get to a place where the service we offer stands for itself and has its own reputation independent of me. So I'd love to get to that place. I don't mind being the face. Being the face of that is actually something to be incredibly proud of.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get to a place where the service itself can sell itself, and someone can sell it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that feels like something that can scale.
Yep.
And if it can't, and if it really is like me, well, then there's two things that tell me, like, one, I have a lifestyle business still, but two, there's a problem. There's a series of problems that I have to solve internally. Like, I know I'll be successful if I'm there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, we, for the longest time, didn't really have a website. Funny story. We had just a website that was an input box for email alone. I think it was just a logo in the middle and then an email input box. And that was the only thing. And I remember being on a prospect call with a CEO, and he was looking to have their website built. And he just comes to me, he's like, "Man, I'm going to be really honest with you. Why the hell would I hire you guys to build our website when your website's shit?" Like, that's a really fair point. But what I had always, anchored to, and the reason why I was like that is that I always told myself, if we're doing a good job or we're succeeding, if we don't need a market, if we keep getting business from word of mouth, from people, from customers who are recommending us to friends, family, whomever in their network to work with us because we're doing that good of a job. And that carried us for like 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I only put up a website in the state that it's in like maybe a year and a half ago. So, and we only did that because we're like, okay, let's get to the place where we get to maybe a little bit better predictability in our business development. Can we
Mm-hmm.
do something where it's not purely networking?
Yeah. I had a similar experience. One of my early prospects looked at my website and I didn't have any like social proof. I didn't have any logos of anybody else. And we were on the call and he goes, "Dude, why would I work with you guys? Like, who the fuck is working with you guys? You don't have anybody on your website." And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "We have worked with a lot of people. They're just not on there." So like, but I have that. So yes, and of course that drives a change, right? You're like, "Oh shit, like now I
Yeah.
look like a fucking idiot. I have to go fix this problem." All right. God, I feel like we talk forever. Let's one more thing. Opso, tell me what it is and tell me how you're not gonna make your main services business go out of business by supporting a product like I see so many service-based companies try to do. How are you guys gonna handle this in a responsible way so that it doesn't suck your revenue and or all your attention off to something else? Or is this going to be the new thing? Tell me about what Opso is. Tell me how you're balancing it. And I mean that from more of a place of love of who's somebody who's tried to run several things at one time. And I'm always like, every
Yeah.
time I was doing the other thing, I'm like, why am I not doing the main thing? Like, that's what I need to be doing. But like, how are you viewing Opso? What is it? And kind of how are you going to balance that with your agency?
Yeah. So, we're a software development agency that builds SaaS products probably, I don't know, two, three, four times a year. We're building something new from scratch, like full on SaaS applications, and mobile applications, and working on dozens of other ones that maybe have already come along the way and need some refactoring. And so we're always on the forefront of, okay, well, what's the fastest way to get from 0 to 1? So we look at services like Firebase and recently Supabase and these things. And I can remember, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, working on a mobile app. We use Firebase. It's great to get started really quickly, do simple things. But man, the moment you start getting into something more complex, it just falls apart. Just the data structures are really wonky and it's just not great, not super scalable in that way. So around the same time that Supabase started thinking the same thing, we started thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a better way to build a database and build the API infrastructure in front of it really quickly and cheaply. And so we started just tinkering internally around some scripts and things that will just quickly spawn these things up. Supabase came out, similar type of focus, being Postgres driven as opposed to a NoSQL driven interface. But we look at Supabase as just, Firebase 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
It's like more or less the same offering. It's this full suite, which is valuable. But don't get me wrong, they do a great job at doing that. But you get locked into their system no differently than Firebase. So what we're aiming to do with Opso is we're building a backend platform and an API builder and a database builder, but we're building it for small businesses, enterprise businesses, people who want to own their own code and not be locked into something. We're building it
Mm-hmm.
for them, and we're building it in a way where it can scale in the same type of patterns. And so you go into our system, you can say, yeah, I want to build also is prompt driven. So you can go handwrite anything, but you can also start with, here's the type of system I'm building. And it will go and scaffold out the whole database and database model. And you can talk with our AI assistant to get your data model exactly how you want it. Once you have it how you want it, it'll scaffold out all your CRUD APIs, and if you want something beyond just CRUD functionality, you can talk to the coding agent on that. And everything, the difference between that and I'd say like a Lovable or Replit or these other kind of vibe coded tools, we have guardrails. We know how an API and a database are supposed to be set, and we bake those guardrails in. So it helps the person who's maybe a front end engineer who knows that they need to go build a database or build their APIs. They would otherwise go be doing it from scratch in Supabase or Firebase and all these things, and want to do it effectively, but they can do it as effectively or efficiently, and they can own all the code,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't need to know all the ins and outs. It's going to guide them through it. So we built it, and to answer your question, we built it mainly for ourselves. We built it to start with to say, hey, we're building these things over and over again. How do we gain better margins? How do we gain better, consistency across all of our customers? So we built it for us. And we figured if we're going to build it for us, taking a page out of Elon Musk's book, we're going to vertically integrate this tool. Why not offer it to the public and see if someone wants to buy it? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to see if anybody's interested. We're launching it in a couple weeks. It's open for people to go in and sign up for the trial today at opso.ai. And we're hoping that it becomes something that becomes a community driven thing. It's not solely us. We've open sourced the CLI tool in the SDK. The platform is an interface that anyone can go in and build on. And so to I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question around how are we going to balance it, but we have resources. So in theory, if it does start to take off and we have success with it, and people are building lots of things, we're also building lots of things with it. So we have resources internally that can answer questions from a customer support angle, and if we need to scale that up, we can do that. We have a pretty robust hiring and recruitment engine for our own like core business. So it feels like an extension of what we're doing naturally. I think maybe where a lot of other service agencies go into product debt elsewhere is when they pick something or try to go after a product that is just fully ancillary to their core business.
Mm-hmm.
This feels very embedded in what we naturally do. So it doesn't feel like something that would take our attention away from what we already do. And more, if nothing else, it enhances what we already do.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is different. That is different. I mean, a lot of times I'll see like a staffing agency build a platform for staffing agencies, and I'm like, that's cool, but like, unless it gains you so much efficiency and like you use it and it's better than any tool you can just go buy off the shelf, then you just wasted a shitload of time going and building some production grade thing that you don't even know if the TAM exists, if it's like the right fit, like all the stuff that you need to
Totally.
do. People like to assume a lot of times because they run an agency that they can build a product that other people are going to like. Now, you guys built a dev tool, which I think is a little bit different than like some sort of consumer grade platform, even a B2B platform that people pick up and start to use. So I can see how that would be less taxing kind of on the day to day, and like even on like it's really more the mental side. It's like
Yeah.
you have to index on two different products, one being your service agency product and then your other being like whatever your actual product is. Like that's a lot of mental cycles to like constantly go through. But if you have one that's closest to what you guys are doing, I think that answers that question. I have one more question. One more question. You ready?
Yeah.
I ask this to everybody. It's the mystery question. And
Well, I don't think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl this year.
well, then you're wrong. No, my question, if only. My question is if you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be? Non-business related, by the way. I don't want this about Maverick or about whatever. I want this Matt being Matt.
Is this just a hobby? Is this like, am I
Anything,
sustaining my life?
anything on earth that you are afraid to do today. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, typically due to fear, what would it be? This doesn't have to be some altruistic answer, by the way. This is whatever.
No. This would be completely self-serving. I
Good,
would probably
good.
open a restaurant.
There you go. That's a great one because that would be awful to do in real life. Like
Oh
without
yeah.
without the guarantee of
Oh yeah.
non-failure, that would be awful. But that sounds fun. I
Absolutely.
think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
I like
I,
it.
I mean, I genuinely love serving people. Like my wife and I host a lot, and I love cooking. So
Mm.
I think in restaurants fail so often, more often than business. So than regular businesses. So I think, and it'd probably be either like a pizza restaurant. I'm fascinated about getting the pizza dough down
You and Eric, of
perfectly.
course. Eric's got
Oh
that
yeah.
under control.
Oh yeah. Oh,
He's got that under
Eric's
control right now.
he's got the dough recipe, and now he's selling it in San Diego. But he got the idea of selling it in San Diego from your boy.
Good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
figured there was a little carryover there.
Although
Good.
I
Yeah.
take no credit for the name he gave his company,
That's
which
pretty
I
good
think
too.
is.
I think it's great. I think it's
Do you
great.
know the name of his?
Yes, I do.
He's
I was over the holidays was talking to him about some videos for his balls. So it was good. It was a great conversation. Well, Matt, look,
3 balls in a box.
3 balls in a box. I mean, what a great name, honestly. I mean, I'm gonna order some. All right. Well, Eagles are gonna win the Super Bowl. You're gonna delegate a bunch of stuff in 26, and then we're gonna probably sync back up maybe in a year. And I'd love to hear how you're doing with all that stuff. I mean, dude, you are a genuinely nice human being, right? And I love nice human beings. And I think the more of those that we have in our day to day life, the better life is. So thank you for being on today. Thanks for doing your first podcast. You did great. If people heard something today that they want to reach out to you directly about to talk more about, how do they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn or email me, matt@mavrictech.com. I'm always open to having conversation with anybody. Love to try to help solve anybody's problems.
Beautiful. Problem solver, Matt. All right, buddy. Hey, have a good rest of your week. Good luck on the Opso launch, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right, buddy. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jay.
See you, Matt. Later.